All right, the man in the video is Deepu Chandra Das, a 30-year-old Hindu garment factory worker from Bangladesh. He lived as a tenant in the Dubalia Para area of Square Master Bari in Mimon Singh district. Reports describe him as an ordinary labourer. The radicalized mob is seen stomping on this man's chest, beating him black and blue to his death with the blood oozing out of his mouth. What was his fault? Well, he was a Bangladeshi citizen, yet he was lynched because he was a Hindu. On your screens now you can see the Bangladeshi newspaper Protham Alo building in Dhaka that was attacked and ransacked by Inqilab Manch protesters. You can see by these disturbing visuals on your screens that these protests are very aggressive, and the streets in many parts of Bangladesh were filled with these protesters. At least 3 incidents of arson were reported in the capital, including fires at buildings housing Bangladesh's leading newspapers, the Daily Star and the Protham Alo. Why did this happen? What exactly are the details of this protest is the big question. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Dive brought to you by NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and today we'll take a deeper look at the Bangladesh protests and what exactly has been happening in the past 24 hours. Violent protests erupted across Bangladesh late on Thursday, which is December 18th night, hours after the death of youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi, who was a prominent face of the 2024 protests which brought down the Sheikh Hasina government. Hadi was undergoing treatment in a Singapore hospital after being shot in the head on the 12th of December by a masked man riding on the back of a motorbike. Shortly after his death was announced, several buildings, including offices and houses and leading newspapers and their offices, were set on fire, trapping journalists and staff inside. The Bengali language Protham Alo and the English language Daily Star. The papers have previously faced protests from groups accusing them of being aligned with India, where former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been living in self-imposed exile since being ousted in last year's uprising. As the protests intensified, the protesters vandalized and set fire to both the newspaper offices, with a section of the crowd looting CPUs, monitors and chairs from the Daily Star office. Let's listen in to one of the visuals at outside of this building. Another visual on your screens now is also from right outside the newspaper building where the protests were taking place, where you can see that they have burned the materials they were throwing out from the newspaper building while they ransacked it, as we saw previously. Post burning these materials, they have started to record the entire instance. Let's listen in to see the sheer aggression that the protesters carried. Well, in this visual on your screens, you can now see the people enraged around a huge roaring fire that they started and throwing in anything and everything from the newspaper building that symbolizes their hatred towards their stance. You can see a man throwing a bundle of newspapers into this fire as well. Let's listen in.
যেমনটি কিন্তু আপনাদের দেখাচ্ছিলাম প্রথম আলো অফিসের সামনে অর্থাৎ হাতির মৃত্যুকে কেন্দ্র করে আজকে ছাত্র জনতা কিছুক্ষণ আগে বিক্ষোভের ডাক দেয় শাহবাগ মোড়ে, এবং শাহবাগ মোড়ে বিক্ষোভের পর থেকে কিন্তু আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছিলাম প্রথম আলো যে অফিসটি রয়েছেন সেই অফিসে ছাত্র জনতার যে যারা রয়েছে তারা কিন্তু হামলা করে, এবং এই মুহূর্তে কিন্তু প্রথম আলো অফিসের সামনে আগুন ধরিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে। অর্থাৎ যে কাগজপাতি ভাই আস্তে আস্তে সময় নিয়ে ভাই
Well, all the Daily Star staff was successfully evacuated to a safe place by 4:30 a.m. on the 19th of December. Earlier, the protesters had remained or gathered in front of newspapers' offices, and some were seen entering the building alongside army personnel around 2:40 a.m. On your screens, you can also see this sky ladder from which reportedly 30 journalists were brought down. At least 4 people, including 2 police personnel, were injured when protesters clashed with police outside the Indian Assistant High Commission in Chattogram. A group of protesters also set fire to the building of the cultural organization Chayanot in Dhaka's Dhanmondi area in early hours of December 19th. Protesters also hurled bricks and stones at the residence of the Assistant Indian High Commission in Chattogram at around 1:30 a.m. but caused no damage. Police dispersed the crowd using tear gas and baton charges and detained 12 protesters, while senior officials later assured the diplomat of security. According to eyewitnesses, a group of people wearing helmets and face coverings entered the building, damaged valuables and fired both inside and outside the premises. Protest
দর্শক আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছিলাম ভারতীয় যে হাই কমিশনের অফিস রয়েছে সেখানে কিন্তু পাথর নিক্ষেপ করা হচ্ছে এবং প্রশাসনকে কিন্তু সরিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে ইতিমধ্যে
Well, protesters also attacked Chayanot, a leading cultural institution in Dhaka devoted to Bengali culture, while elsewhere crowds blocked a key highway out of the capital. Witnesses said that demonstrators gathered at Shahbag Square near Dhaka University, chanting slogans including Allahu Akbar, with similar protests reported in other parts of the country as well. Bangladesh now stands at a crossroads. What began as a protest has descended into violence and chaos. A man lynched for his identity and his religion, newsrooms torched, journalists attacked, and the rule of law pushed to the limits. The attacks on press and minorities are a warning, not just for Bangladesh but for the region as well. The coming hours will show whether the state can restore order or whether mob rule will prevail. We'll continue to track every development, but first up, let's also get an opinion on what's happening in Bangladesh with our guest. Joining us on the program is Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian. Professor Nalapat, we spoke about this yesterday as well, but the situation in Bangladesh has intensified. This doesn't look to be a Gen Z protest. You know, people are being lynched, people are being killed for their identities and for standing up for right to information and right to speech. What do you make of the decadence that we are seeing in Bangladesh?
This is pure anarchy, Vineet, and it's quite obvious that Bangladesh has no functioning government. It never had after Sheikh Hasina left. Sheikh Hasina was not good at all, but what followed in its wake was much worse. A completely motley collection of mostly extremists, anti-Hindu people, and a large number of Hindus were at that stage attacked. A lot of their property was damaged or forcibly confiscated without any compensation. Horrible things have happened there. I mean, Sheikh Hasina, as I said, was bad, but this is worse. And I'd like to point out that very clearly the students are upset because there are no jobs. There's high inflation. And when you have a combination of no job, low jobs, a low number of jobs, and higher inflation, and more difficult to find even everyday common items, then obviously you have a perfectly combustible mixture. And that's what we have in Bangladesh. So I fear, unfortunately, a situation is getting out of control, and I doubt very much that the government will be able to bring it under control, for simple reason that this government itself came on the back of street protests. So I think, very honestly, it is ironic that it may have to quit on the back of street protests. And as for lynchings, the problem is that some of these media outlets are basically, taking a line that the students don't like, and and that situation, you're torching them, you're burning them, You're setting their journalists on fire. It's clear that anarchy is in control. It's clear that the mob is in control. It's clear that there is no functioning government in Bangladesh. And as for India, we need to strengthen our defenses on the India-Bangladesh border, make sure that it is impervious to entry of more illegals. Already we have a large number of Bangladeshi illegals. In some part, that's because of corruption within the border security forces. That corruption has to be rooted out by Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah in a very, very determined fashion to ensure that the India-Bangladesh border is not porous at all, for a simple reason that there will be a flood of people from Bangladesh who are coming to India, and many of them will be undesirable. They will be the same people who basically revolted against India because Sheikh Hasina was pro-India, and they revolted against her, and then they attacked the High Commission. The same people will try to come across the border, so we have to make sure our border security is watertight, and I'm sure the Prime Minister and the Home Minister have made that a top priority. Vineet.
Professor Nalapat, always a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you so much for your perspective here. We take a short break now. We'll be right back.